Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? You should check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Pictorum Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. Instead of a boring old tie, get him a historic baseball photo taken by Henry High Sandom at the historic Polo Grounds Stadium in New York City during the 1894 Temple Cup. Or, if he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL poster. These are so good looking that you'll be amazed how they turn out. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order.
It's a bonus edition with the football by numbers on the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, as we will talk about jersey number 38 and come up with the top 10 best players that ever wore that jersey number, and it's all coming up in just a moment. This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. This is your host, Darren Hayes, and we're podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So with Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff supplying us with the tunes, let's go no huddle through today's football history headlines.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com, and welcome once again to the Pig Pen. And tonight we have a bonus edition. Our Football by Numbers series is back, and tonight we're going to pick up right where we left off, and we are with jersey number 38, and it is a solo mission. It's just me tonight, me and you folks, and if I have anything that you have question on, or maybe somebody I may have forgot that wore the number 38 tonight, please, and we'll remind you at the end of the program, email me at pigskindispatch@gmail.com, and we will try to correct it on a future broadcast to make sure we have the top 10 best number 38s in the NFL's history, because that's what we're all about here. That's what we're going to do. But we're going to toss about some significant players that wore that number 38. And we always start off with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they tell us that two of their enshrined players are wearing the number 38, or have worn the number 38, and that is Arnie Erber and Cal Hubbard, two great names from football history. Let's start off with Arnie Erber, because he was just a great quarterback. We have talked about him before, both on our football history headlines. I think we've talked about him on these numbers because he's wore quite a few other numbers too. But he wore the number 38 for 6 seasons, and he played from 1930 all the way to 1946. And of course, he was a great quarterback and a lot of connections with the Green Bay Packers. He had 11 years with the Packers, but he was that famous connection, his favorite wide receiver, Don Hutson. A lot of passing of these passing years we're going to talk about went directly to Hudson. But in that era, 1930, remember the league is only like 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old, less than a decade old when he starts out there. And he had 8,041 passing yards, 81 touchdowns, 106 interceptions. But remember, passing, they hadn't really figured it out then. There was a lot of running back then. So but he was a one-time as an All-Pro, 4-time NFL champion in the all 1930s Hall of Fame team. And he played in a Pro Bowl too. Definitely, Arnie Erber is just that good from that era. He's one of the top quarterbacks of his time, and definitely he is going to be going into our top 10 number 38s of all time. Our next player we want to talk about is Cal Hubbard. He's another old-timer that we want to get into, and we have talked about this player before too. And he played tight tackle, he played end, defensive end, guard. He was a two-way player back in that same era, 1927 all the way to 1936. Played with the Giants for a couple seasons, and then was with the Green Bay Packers. So he was him and Erber were sharing that number 38, I think, a few times. But actually, Cal Hubbard only wore the number 38 for one season, and that was in 1931. But he was an All-Pro that season. As a matter of fact, he was an All-Pro 4 different times. One of those seasons, he wore the number 38. 4-time NFL champ, probably the same championships that Erber had, and all 1920s team. Those teammates both on the 1920s team. He is just another great player. Don't have a lot of statistics from that era for those positions, but with everything good that the Pro Football Hall of Fame says about him. Some of our historians that we've had on here have talked quite at length about how good he was, and that is good enough for me. He is going to be our second spot on our top 10 greatest number 38s in NFL history. Now, let's get into some discussion on some of these players that are not in the Hall of Fame yet. And we have some great players to talk about. And Eugene Daniel is one of those players. And Eugene Daniel was a defensive back, and he ended up playing from 1984, and he played all the way to the year 1997. 13 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts, 1 year with the Baltimore Ravens, mostly playing cornerback and on the right side. 38 interceptions, 3 touchdowns off of those, wore the 38 for quite a few seasons. Just a fantastic player. I think he may make our list, but we're going to talk about him again. We'll come back to him. Roland James is another player that I do want to mention because of his pro career, also as a defensive back. He had 29 interceptions, didn't take any back for touchdowns, but had 383 return yards. And he played with the New England Patriots his entire career, 1980 to 1990, that whole decade of the 80s, basically. And just was a solid player for them. Not sure that he will make it or not, but definitely somebody that was worth mentioning here. Bob Tucker is another player we want to talk about because he wore that number 38 for some time, and played from 1970 all the way to 1980. Most of that time with the Giants, 8 seasons with the Giants, 4 with the Minnesota Vikings, and he was another great. He was a tight end, actually. He had 5,400 yards of receiving, over 5,400, 27 touchdowns, and played in 156 games. Really known well for his blocking, and even had a couple rushes in there, probably on some end arounds or something. But Bob Tucker, a solid player, 5,400 yards in that era. Not too shabby. We're going to put him on our watch list to maybe possibly come back and look at him again. Some other players we wanted. This is a player that wore the number 38 for 10 seasons, and that's Sam Baker. And Sam Baker really had some great things to provide for his team. He was a kicker and he was a fullback, so sort of a two-way player. 1953 and played all the way to 1969. Came in with the Washington Redskins for 5 seasons, then played with Cleveland for 2 seasons in the early 60s, and then was a Philadelphia Eagle for 6 years and a Dallas Cowboy for a couple years during that time. And he was, we said a kicker and a fullback. He made 179 field goals, 428 extra points, and didn't really run the ball very much. At least we don't have statistics on that, but he did have some great blocking. Well, we do. He had 234 career rushing yards, so not a whole lot there. And he ended up having 2 touchdowns. So, not bad for a kicker to come in and play fullback. I can't imagine that. All the kickers I imagine are usually not big enough to play fullback, so you got to give him some credit there. But the era he played in, a lot of players were doing that, playing a couple different positions. Well, we'll keep him on our radar. But Mark Kelso wore that number 38 for 8 seasons, and Kelso, was another defensive back. 30 interceptions, 327 return yards, 1 for a touchdown. Came in 1986 with those great Buffalo Bills teams. Played Buffalo's whole career all the way to 1993. Played in 4 Super Bowls. Fortunately, they were losing ones for the Bills. But, a good solid player at the defensive back. Gave a little bit of special teams flair when they needed him. But really known as a great DB. And I think probably... knowing his play and wearing that for 8 years, I think we will put Mark Kelso as our 3rd spot into our top 10. Tyrone Poole is another player that we want to talk about. Very significant number 38 in NFL history. Another defensive back. Had 18 interceptions, 231 return yards. Played on a variety of teams from 1995 through 2008, came in with the Carolina Panthers, had some Indianapolis Colts, 3 years, some time with Denver, 3 years with New England, a cup of coffee with Oakland. Good solid player. Not sure that he will make our our top 10 list, but he did have 14 seasons in the league, so we make sure we talk about those folks. And another one that had a long time is Tremont Williams, who had 13 seasons wearing the number 38, and he was another defensive back, had 34 interceptions, 433 yards, came in 2007 with the Green Bay Packers, played with them for 10 years, a couple years with Cleveland, and then 1 year each with Arizona and Baltimore, and really had a couple of real nice seasons, especially with the Packers. But real nice player there. I think he's another one we may want to come back to and take a look at, because real strong player. Deshaun Goldson is another player we would like to talk about. Had some significant years wearing the number 38. Defensive back. Came in 2007. 2016 was his last season. 6 years with San Francisco. Played with a little bit with Tampa Bay, Washington, and Atlanta during his career. 16 picks, 2 taken back for touchdowns, 2 Pro Bowls, 1 year as an All-Pro. Got some good hardware on his resume. May have to take a look at him when we come back again at the end. George Rogers, another player, wore the number 38 for 7 seasons. Great running back. Had 7,176 yards, 54 touchdowns, played 1981 all the way to 1987. New Orleans Saints for 4 years, 3 years with the Washington Redskins, and just those running backs, just hard for them to last, but very productive in those 7 seasons, 7,100 yards. His 1,000-yard seasons, he had 4 of them, hit 900 a couple times, but his rookie year, 1,674 yards, led the league. Also led the league in rushes, 378. That's probably why he only had 7 years in the league, but they really fed him the rock a lot. He was averaging his rookie year 104.6 yards per game. 2-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, and 1981 AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. George Rogers was very deservedly so. Great player, and I think George Rogers has the credentials and the statistics. He is going to be our 4th one to go on our top number 38s in NFL history. And Daniel Manning, let's take a look at him, his professional career in football, to see what he's got. Another defensive back, had a lot of return yards, 129 returns for 3,370 yards returned, and his interceptions weren't high. He had 11 interceptions in his career, but played with Chicago for his first 5 seasons, 4 years with Houston. 2006 all the way to 2014 is what his career spanned. Not a bad player. I don't know if he's going to have quite the mustard to make it onto our list, but it's possible. Anything's possible here. Kimball Anders, he wore the number 38 for 10 seasons, and he was another running back, had 2,261 yards, 495 yards rushes, 4.6 average, 9 touchdowns. He played from 1991 all the way to 2000 with the Kansas City Chiefs. Good supplementary running back for them. Not sure that he will make our top 10. Mike Anderson is another prolific back, wore the number for 8 seasons and wore number 38. Another running back, had just over 4,000 yards rushing, 37 touchdowns. Denver Broncos for 5 really strong seasons and a couple with Baltimore. Another big back that he had his rookie year, 1,487 yards, hit the 1,000-yard mark again in 2006, and had a little bit of injury problem, I think, that kept him on the bench, or he could have been something special. But he was a good hard runner, and usually those hard runners, their bodies take a beating. But with 4,067 yards and 37 touchdowns, and looking at this list, he has a good shot to possibly crack our top 10 here. We'll go through a few more here. Bill Triplett is another player we want to talk about. And so we get Bill's stats up here. He was a running back and defensive back, played from 1962 to 1972. St. Louis Cardinals for 4 years. played with the New York Giants for a year and the Detroit Lions for 5 seasons. For his running back, he had 681 rushes for 2,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, a 3.6 average. Good back, wore 38 his whole career. Not sure he's going to have the stats to get him on here. But maybe Antonio Langham, maybe he has the goods to get him on the list here. And Antonio, he wore the number 38 for 7 seasons, and he was a great defensive back. 14 interceptions, 154 return yards, 1 touchdown. Played with the Cleveland Browns, came in 1994, and was off and on with them for a few times. Baltimore Ravens for a couple of years. Cup of coffee with San Francisco and New England. Good journeyman player. Not sure he's got the stats to make our top 10. And how about Larry Smith, though? Larry Smith is another good player that, according to Pro Football Reference, running back, had just over 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3.9 yards per carry, played 1969 through 73 with the Rams, and in 1974 played with the Washington Redskins team. Did not have any awards of Hall of Fames or Pro Bowls. And, Wendell Hayes is another one, just because he's got such a great last name. We'll take a look and see what Wendell did. He's got to be good when he has a name like that, right? Running back, 3,758 yards, 28 touchdowns, 988 rushes during that career. Played in the era from 1963, came in with Dallas, played with Denver for 3 seasons, and then Kansas City all the way to 1974, so 7 seasons with the Chiefs. He was an AFL champion and a Super Bowl champion with those Chiefs teams, so they did some damage. Not sure that Wendell, even though he has that great last name, not sure that he is going to have enough to make it. But we have Lee Nelson, wore number 38 for 10 seasons. And, with the number 38 for 10 seasons, you had to do some good things. A defensive back. But he only had 7 picks, 49 touchdowns. 49 yards, no touchdowns. 49 yards returned on those 7 things. Not a whole lot there. 1976 to 1985 with the St. Louis Cardinals at cornerback for a few years, and strong safety was a conversion there. But definitely want to mention him because he wore for 10 seasons. And that's all the names that we want to mention here. So we have 4 spots locked up. Arnie Erber, Cal Hubbard, Mark Kelso, and George Rogers, the running back. So I think another one I'm going to put on there, we talked about him, is Tremont Williams. I'm going to put him on there as our 5th spot to take up that. And I think Eugene Daniels, another one I want to put on there. So that's our 6, and I think Bob Tucker's another one we want to get on there. He's our 7th. Sam Baker will be our 8th player. Our 9th will be Deshaun Goldson, and then Mike Anderson at Denver Bronco will be our 10th selection. There's our top 10 greatest number 38s in NFL history, that jersey number. Again, if we missed anybody, or you think maybe one of the players we mentioned that shouldn't be on there and somebody else should, please write us at pigskindispatch@gmail.com, and we will make a correction in the near future on a podcast. We'll go through all these, and there's already some coming in, and we appreciate your help because we want to get this right. We're not always the right ones, but you, our listenership, have a lot of great minds and a lot of great thoughts, and we want to share them with everybody and try to get this list as accurate as we can, because this is NFL history and it's based on fact. So hope you enjoyed this program. We'll be coming back with the number 39s in a day or two, and we have some other great interviews coming up too on some bonus specials. We have some authors coming up. Jesse Barrett wrote a great book, Pigskin Nation, how the NFL remade American politics. We have a great discussion with him coming up in the next couple of days. You don't want to miss that. So, and along with our regular football history headlines and birthdays of Hall of Famers. So we're coming at you every single day of the year with football history, because every day is a gridiron day. Until tomorrow, everybody, have a great gridiron day. Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
It was just another ordinary day in the offices of the Pittsburgh Guardian newspaper circa 1924. But for Marla Delft, assistant editor, everything was about to change. For she was about to discover the awesome attractiveness of Row 1 brand retro sports paraphernalia items thanks to Orville Mulligan, sports writer.
And there it is.
Wow, Orville, that's really the bee's knees.
Isn't it just? A poster-sized replica of the actual 1909 World Series program cover.
I can see that. But where did you get it? And where'd you get it framed?
I ordered it from the Row 1 website, where over 6,000 items of sports memorabilia from the 1880s to the 1990s are available for reproduction, in multiple sizes and in several different materials, with over a dozen styles of frame to choose from for prints like this.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Delft would love to put up more of these in the office. But I'm equally as sure they're beyond this newspaper's budget.
Not at all, my dear Marla. See for yourself. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com/row1.
sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. Oh my, these are good prices. Oh, and look at this stuff. Oklahoma-Nebraska football, college basketball art, Michael Jordan items.
And so
retro
it was that
sports
Marla Delft
advertisement
discovered the
placards.
splendiferous magic of Row 1 sports memorabilia, arts, and prints. You can too by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. That's ROW1 today for access to the full Row 1 catalog of gallery prints and gifts like t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, telephone cases, coffee mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Act today for 15% discount off all prints with coupon code SHN15 and 20% off all other items with coupon code SHN20 at checkout. And keep your dial locked to the Sports History Network for the exciting chronicles of the 1920 sports world in Orville Mulligan, sports writer. Coming soon.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row 1, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings you sports history to life anywhere. The Row 1 gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row 1 shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row 1 catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row 1 Pictorum Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.